Lila Carter wiped the flour from her hands onto her worn apron, watching the sun rise through the bakery window. At 26, her life had a comfortable rhythm. Wake at 4, help Mrs. Jensen prepare fresh bread and pastries. Serve customers with a warm smile. Then return to her tiny studio apartment, where the radiator clanked and the neighbor's television blared through thin walls. She never complained. This was her life. And she had learned long ago that dreams were expensive luxuries she couldn't afford. The morning air smelled of cinnamon and yeast as Lila arranged croissants in the display case. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her green eyes reflected a quiet contentment. She had grown up in foster care, bouncing between homes until she aged out at 18. The bakery job had saved her, giving her purpose and a sense of belonging. Mrs. Jensen treated her like the daughter she never had, and that was more than enough. But lately, something felt different. Lila had been exhausted in a way that sleep couldn't fix. Her body felt heavy, her appetite strange. When Mrs. Jensen noticed her fatigue, she insisted Lila visit the community health clinic for a checkup. It was a simple precaution, nothing more. Just some blood work to make sure everything was functioning properly. The clinic occupied a modest building on the edge of downtown, where the gleaming office towers gave way to older neighborhoods. Lila arrived on a Tuesday morning, her hands cold despite the mild weather. The waiting room smelled of antiseptic and worry. She filled out forms, answered questions about her medical history, and tried to ignore the nervous flutter in her stomach. She didn't notice the man who entered moments after her. Damian Cross moved with the kind of quiet confidence that money and power cultivated. At 38, he had built an empire in technology and real estate. His name whispered in boardrooms and featured in business magazines. He rarely visited places like this clinic, but his doctor had recommended a discreet facility for a personal procedure. He wanted to preserve his genetic material before time made the decision for him. Their eyes met for just a second in that crowded waiting room. Lila saw a tall man with dark hair touched with silver at the temples, sharp jawline, and eyes the color of storm clouds. He wore an expensive suit that seemed out of place among the plastic chairs and dated magazines. Damien saw a young woman with natural beauty unmarred by artifice. Exhaustion, evident in the shadows under her eyes. Yet something luminous in her expression that caught his attention. Neither knew that within the next hour, a tired medical technician named Rita would make a catastrophic error. Rita had worked a double shift, her eyes burning with fatigue, her mind clouded by exhaustion. When she processed the specimens and prepared the procedure rooms, she mixed up the protocols. A simple mistake, the kind that happens when human beings are pushed beyond their limits. But this mistake would bind two strangers together in the most profound way possible. The phone call. 3 weeks passed. Lila returned to her routine, the clinic visit fading into memory. Then came the phone call that shattered her world. She was decorating a wedding cake when her phone buzzed. The voice on the other end was shaking, professional training barely containing panic. "Miss Carter, this is Dr. Reynolds from the clinic. We need you to come in immediately. There has been a serious complication." Lila's hands went numb. The piping bag slipped from her fingers, blue frosting streaking across the counter. "What kind of complication?" Her voice barely rose above a whisper. "You're pregnant, Miss Carter. And we need to explain how this happened." The world tilted. Lila gripped the counter, her knees threatening to give way. "That's impossible. I haven't been with anyone. I came in for blood tests." "We know. That's why you need to come in right away." "Please, Miss Carter." Today, across the city, Damien received a similar call. He was in a meeting with investors when his assistant interrupted, her face pale. He took the call in his private office, listening with growing disbelief as Dr. Reynolds explained the inexplicable. The clinic's conference room felt too small to contain the magnitude of what had happened. Lila sat in a hard plastic chair, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. Dr. Reynolds, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a voice heavy with regret, explained the error. A mix-up in protocols. Wrong procedure, wrong patient. The genetic material meant to be frozen had been used in an insemination procedure Lila never consented to. "I don't understand." Lila's voice cracked. "How does someone accidentally inseminate the wrong person? Don't you check? Don't you verify?" "We do. We should have." But there were multiple failures in our protocol that day. Dr. Reynolds looked like she had aged 10 years and 3 weeks. The technician who made the error has been terminated. We've implemented new safeguards. But none of that changes what happened to you. Whose material was it? Lila demanded. Who is the father? Before Dr. Reynolds could answer, the door opened. Damian Cross entered the room and Lila recognized him immediately. The man from the waiting room. But now she could place him. She had seen his face on magazine covers at the grocery store checkout. Read headlines about his business deals while standing in line at the bank. Damian's eyes found hers across the room. And something passed between them. Recognition, shock, and beneath it all, an inexplicable connection that neither could explain. You're the father. It wasn't a question. Damian nodded slowly, moving to sit across from her. His usual composure was shaken, vulnerability showing through the cracks. Yes, and I want you to know that I had no part in this. I never intended for any of this to happen. Neither did I. Leela's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. I just wanted to make sure I was healthy. Now I'm pregnant by a complete stranger. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken fears and impossible questions. Dr. Reynolds explained their legal options. The clinic's liability, the support they would receive, but Lila barely heard any of it. All she could focus on was the man sitting across from her, his gray eyes studying her face as if trying to memorize every detail. Finally, Damian spoke. His voice low and steady despite the chaos swirling around them. Lila, may I call you Lila? She nodded, unable to find words. I know this is impossible to process, but there's a life growing inside you now. My child. Our child, in the strangest sense. And I want to take responsibility for that. I want to make sure you have everything you need. I don't need your money. The words came out sharper than she intended. Damian's expression softened. I wasn't offering money. I was offering support, care. Whatever you need to get through this. The proposal over the next week, they met several times. Always at neutral locations, a quiet coffee shop, a park bench, the clinic's office. Lawyers drew up agreements. Doctors explained prenatal care. And slowly, carefully, Lila and Damian began to know each other beyond the circumstances that bound them. Damian learned that Lila loved old movies and baking, that she dreamed of someday opening her own small cafe, that she had never traveled beyond the city limits because she was always saving for emergencies that never seemed to end. Lila discovered that Damian had built his fortune from nothing, that he loved classical music and early morning runs, that despite his wealth, he felt profoundly lonely in ways money couldn't fix. On a cool evening, as autumn leaves scattered across the sidewalk, Damian made his proposal, move in with me. He said it simply, standing beside her outside the bakery where she worked. Not as a couple. Not as anything more than two people sharing responsibility for this child. You'll have your own space, your privacy, your freedom, but you'll also have the best medical care, comfort, and you won't have to worry about rent or bills or working yourself to exhaustion. Lila stared at him, searching for hidden motives. I barely know you, then we'll get to know each other. Damian's gray eyes held hers steadily. We have 7 months before this baby arrives. That's enough time to build trust, to become friends at least, to figure out how to be parents together, and if it doesn't work, then you leave. No strings, no obligations beyond what we agree to for the child's sake. Lila turned away, watching people hurry past on their way home from work. Normal lives, normal problems. How had her life veered so far from normal? Yet beneath the fear, something else stirred. Curiosity, perhaps? Or maybe just exhaustion from fighting so hard for so long. She turned back to face him. I have conditions? Damian smiled slightly. I would expect nothing less. I keep working at the bakery as long as I'm able. I'm not going to sit around being useless. Agreed. I want everything in writing. What happens after the baby is born? Custody arrangements. Financial responsibilities. My lawyer will draft whatever you need, and you treat me like an equal. Not a charity case. Not an obligation. A person. Damian stepped closer. Close enough that she could see the silver flecks in his gray eyes. close enough to feel the warmth radiating from him. "Lila, you were never anything less than that." She took a deep breath, her hand instinctively moving to her still flat stomach, where a tiny life was growing. A life that shouldn't exist but did. A life that had already changed everything. "Okay?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Let's try this." And with those simple words, Lila Carter stepped out of her small, predictable life and into something vast and terrifying, and possibly, just possibly, extraordinary. The moving truck looked absurd, parked in front of Lila's studio apartment. She owned so little that everything fit into 6 cardboard boxes and 2 duffel bags. Her clothes, some books, kitchen items from thrift stores, and a few photographs of people who had mattered along the way. As she taped the last box shut, Mrs. Jensen appeared in the doorway, her round face creased with concern and affection. "You sure about this, sweetheart?" The older woman pulled Lila into a tight hug that smelled of vanilla and cinnamon. Lila returned the embrace, fighting back tears. "I'm sure. Or at least, I'm sure I need to try." For the baby, Mrs. Jensen pulled back, holding Lila at arm's length. "You call me if you need anything. Anything at all. You're not alone in this world, no matter how fancy that man's house is." The drive to Damien's estate took them through neighborhoods Lila had never visited, where homes became mansions and gates became walls. When they finally turned onto a private road lined with ancient oak trees, Lila felt her stomach clench with nervousness. The house emerged like something from a dream. All clean modern lines and floor-to-ceiling windows. Surrounded by manicured gardens that probably required a full-time staff, Damien met her at the entrance. His suit jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up in a gesture that made him seem almost approachable. "Welcome home." He said it simply, without fanfare. Home. The word felt foreign in her mouth. A woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a professional demeanor stepped forward. "This is Claire, my housekeeper. She'll show you around and help you get settled." The interior took Lila's breath away. Everything was elegant, but somehow warm. Modern furniture mixed with vintage pieces. Art on the walls that probably cost more than she had earned in her entire life. Her footsteps echoed on polished hardwood floors as Claire led her upstairs. "This is your suite." Claire opened double doors to reveal a space larger than Lila's entire former apartment. A massive bed dominated one wall, but there was also a sitting area with a fireplace, a desk by windows overlooking the gardens, and doors leading to a walk-in closet and bathroom that resembled a spa. Lila stood frozen in the doorway. "This is too much." Damien appeared behind her, his voice gentle. "You're carrying my child. This is the least I can do to make sure you're both comfortable and safe. Learning anew." The first weeks were awkward in ways Lila hadn't anticipated. She woke early from habit, padding downstairs in her worn pajamas, only to find Damien already awake, dressed in running clothes, reading the financial news on his tablet. They would exchange polite good mornings, share breakfast in a kitchen bigger than most restaurants, then go their separate ways. He to his office downtown, she to the bakery, where Mrs. Jensen watched her with protective concern. But gradually things shifted. Damien started timing his morning runs to coincide with her wake-up time, turning just as she came downstairs so they could have breakfast together. He asked about her work, her childhood and foster care, her dreams for the future. She asked about his business, his own upbringing, which had been wealthy but emotionally cold. His reasons for remaining unmarried at 30-8, one evening. Lila found him in the library, a room lined with books that reached the ceiling. He was sitting by the fireplace, reading something that made his brow furrow in concentration. She hesitated in the doorway, suddenly aware that she was intruding on his private space. "Come in." He looked up, setting the book aside. "You're not interrupting? What are you reading?" She moved closer, curious despite herself. "Poetry." He smiled slightly at her surprised expression. "Not what you expected from a ruthless businessman?" "I didn't say that." But she was smiling too, as she settled into the chair across from him. "My mother loved poetry. It's one of the few good memories I have of her before she passed." He paused, his gray eyes distant. "She used to read to me every night. Frost, Dickinson, Neruda. I didn't understand half of it, but I loved hearing her voice." Lila felt something shift in her chest. This vulnerability he was showing her, this glimpse behind the polished exterior. My foster mother, the one I stayed with longest, she loved old movies. We'd watch them together on Friday nights. Black and white films where people spoke in rapid-fire dialogue and everything worked out in the end. Do you still watch them? Sometimes. When I need to remember that happy endings are possible, Damien leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. They are possible, Lila, even in the messiest, most complicated situations. The transformation as Lila's pregnancy progressed, her body began to change in ways that were both beautiful and frightening. Her belly grew round and firm, the baby's presence becoming more real with each passing day. Damien insisted on accompanying her to every doctor's appointment, his hand finding hers during the ultrasounds. When they heard the heartbeat for the first time. But with the physical changes, came social obligations Lila wasn't prepared for. Damien had a charity gala to attend, an annual event where the city's elite gathered to donate money and be seen. He asked her to join him, his expression hopeful and slightly nervous. I don't belong at something like that. Lila protested, panic rising in her throat. I don't know how to act around those people. I'll embarrass you. You could never embarrass me. Damien's conviction was absolute. But if you're worried, I can arrange for some help. Not to change you, just to give you confidence. That's how Gabrielle entered her life. A stylist and etiquette coach who somehow managed to be both professional and warm. She spent hours with Lila, not teaching her to be someone else, but helping her recognize her own strength. They worked on posture, conversation skills, how to navigate a formal dinner without feeling lost. Gabrielle brought in a seamstress who created a stunning emerald gown that draped elegantly over Lila's growing belly, making her look like a goddess rather than someone trying to hide. The night of the gala. Lila descended the stairs to find Damien waiting in the foyer. He wore a black tuxedo that emphasized his broad shoulders and tall frame. But it was his expression when he saw her that made Lila's breath catch. Pure admiration mixed with something deeper, something neither of them had named yet. You look breathtaking. His voice was rough with emotion. The gala was held in a historic hotel with crystal chandeliers and marble floors that clicked under designer heels. Lila felt eyes on her the moment they entered, whispers following in their wake. She knew what people were thinking, wondering who this unknown woman was on Damien Cross's arm, why she was obviously pregnant, what the story could possibly be. Damien's hand found the small of her back, a steady presence that anchored her. I'm right here. You're doing beautifully. They navigated through conversations with politicians, business moguls, and socialites who smiled with their mouths, but not their eyes. Lila remembered Gabrielle's lessons, maintaining eye contact, speaking clearly, refusing to apologize for her presence. When one particularly sharp-tongued woman asked pointed questions about their relationship, Lila smiled gracefully. Damien and I are focused on preparing for our child. Everything else is private. Simple, firm, dignified. The first real connection late that night. After the gala ended and they returned home, Lila found she was too energized to sleep. She changed into comfortable clothes and went downstairs, finding Damien in the kitchen making tea. He had removed his jacket and bow tie, his shirt unbuttoned at the collar. Looking more relaxed than she had seen him all evening. Can't sleep either? He asked, pouring her a cup of chamomile. Too much excitement. Lila accepted the cup gratefully, their fingers brushing in the exchange. A spark of electricity passed between them, impossible to ignore. You were amazing tonight. Damien's admiration was evident. The way you handled yourself, the confidence you showed. I was proud to have you by my side, something in his words. The sincerity behind them broke through the last of Lila's careful defenses. Why are you being so kind to me? This whole situation, it's not your fault, but you've gone beyond what anyone would expect. Why? Damien set down his cup, moving closer until only inches separated them. Because from the moment I saw you in that clinic waiting room, something in me recognized something in you. I don't believe in fate, Lila. I've built my life on logic and strategy. But this, us, it feels like something I was always meant to find. Lila's heart hammered in her chest. The baby kicked suddenly, a strong flutter that made her gasp. Damien's eyes widened. Can I? He gestured to her belly, She nodded, unable to speak. When his hand pressed gently against the curve where their child grew, another kick came, stronger this time. Damien's expression transformed, wonder and joy, and something fierce and protective washing over his features. "Our baby." He whispered it like a prayer. "Our miracle," Lila placed her hand over his. And they stood there in the quiet kitchen, connected by the life between them and something else, something growing as surely as the child, something that felt dangerously like love. Asterisk, as winter settled over the city, Lila's pregnancy entered its final trimester. The baby was active now, kicking and rolling, making her presence known at all hours. Yes, presence. The ultrasound had revealed a daughter. And both Lila and Damien found themselves talking to her, planning for her, falling in love with someone they hadn't yet met. But with the approaching due date came fears Lila had pushed aside. She hadn't grown up with a mother's love. What if she didn't know how to give it? What if the trauma of her childhood had broken something essential inside her? These thoughts haunted her late at night. When the house was quiet and her mind wouldn't rest, Damien found her one such night. Sitting in the nursery they had decorated together, soft yellow walls, white furniture, a rocking chair by the window where moonlight streamed through. She was holding a tiny onesie, tears streaming down her face. "Lila." He crossed the room quickly, kneeling beside the chair. "What's wrong? Is it the baby?" She shook her head, unable to speak through the sobs. Finally, the words came out broken and raw. "I don't know how to be a mother. I never had one, not really. What if I mess this up? What if I can't love her the way she deserves?" Damien took the onesie from her trembling hands and replaced it with his own steady grip. "Listen to me. You are going to be an extraordinary mother. I've watched you these past months. The way you talk to her, the way you've prepared, the way you care about doing right by her. That's love, Lila. You already love her more than anything. How do you know? Because I see it in everything you do." He reached up, gently wiping the tears from her cheeks. "And you're not doing this alone. I'm here. We're a team, remember?" His words were a lifeline, pulling her back from the edge of panic. She leaned into his touch, and he pulled her close, holding her as the baby kicked between them. In that moment, Lila realized something she had been too afraid to acknowledge. She wasn't just grateful to Damien. She wasn't just building friendship or partnership. She had fallen completely, irrevocably in love with him. The crisis at 36 weeks, everything changed. Lila woke in the middle of the night, with pain radiating through her abdomen. She tried to tell herself it was normal, just practice contractions. But when she stood, fluid soaked through her nightgown, her water had broken. Too early. Far too early, Damien. Her voice came out as a frightened whisper. But he was already awake, already moving. The drive to the hospital was a blur of streetlights and fear. Damien held her hand the entire way, his voice steady even though she could see terror in his eyes. "You're going to be fine. The baby is going to be fine. Just breathe, sweetheart. Breathe with me." The hospital became their world for the next 3 days. Lila lay in bed, hooked to monitors that beeped and hummed, medications flowing through an IV to stop the premature labor. Damien never left her side. He slept in the uncomfortable chair, ate hospital cafeteria food, and held her hand through every contraction that the medicine couldn't stop. On the third night, when Lila's fear was at its peak, Damien climbed carefully into the narrow hospital bed beside her, gathering her into his arms. "I need to tell you something." His voice was low, meant only for her. "These past months with you, they've been the best of my life. Not because of the baby, though I love her already, but because of you. Your strength, your kindness, your laugh, the way you see the world. I've fallen in love with you, Lila Carter. Completely and hopelessly in love." Lila's breath caught, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. "I love you too. I've been so scared to say it, scared it would change everything. It does change everything." He pressed his forehead to hers. "It makes us a family. A real family. Not because of circumstance or obligation, but because we choose each other." The baby kicked strongly between them, as if in agreement. The arrival at 38 weeks, their daughter decided she was ready. Labor came on fast and fierce, leaving little time for fear. Damien stayed with Lila through every moment, coaching her breathing, wiping her forehead, telling her how strong she was, how proud he was, how much he loved her. When their daughter finally arrived, her cry filling the delivery room with indignant life. Leela and Damien looked at each other with wonder. The nurse placed the baby on Leela's chest, and the world narrowed to this tiny person with dark hair and her father's gray eyes. She's perfect. Damien's voice broke with emotion. You're both perfect. They named her Hope, because that's what she represented. Hope born from chaos. Hope that proved love could grow in the most unexpected places. Hope for a future neither of them had imagined, but both now couldn't live without. The beginning 6 weeks later, on a crisp spring morning, Leela stood in the garden with Hope asleep in her arms. The flowers were blooming, the world coming back to life after winter's sleep. She heard footsteps behind her and smiled before turning. Damien wrapped his arms around them both, creating a circle of warmth and safety. I was thinking, he spoke softly, careful not to wake their daughter. About what? About making this official. Not for appearances or legal reasons, but because I want the world to know you're mine and I'm yours. Marry me, Lila? She turned in his embrace, her green eyes meeting his gray ones. Yes, not because of circumstance or obligation, but because I choose you. Every day, I choose you. Their kiss was gentle, mindful of the sleeping baby between them, but it held a promise of forever. What started as the most impossible mistake had become the greatest gift of their lives. A medical error had brought together two people who would have never met otherwise. And from that chaos, they had built something beautiful. Family. A love story written by fate's strangest hand, as Hope stirred and opened her eyes. Looking up at her parents with innocent wonder, Lila knew that sometimes the best things in life are the ones you never planned for. The ones that choose you just as much as you choose them. Their story was just beginning, but it was already everything they never knew they needed. A second chance at love, a first chance at family, and a lifetime of choosing each other over and over again. The garden bloomed around them, and somewhere in the house Claire was preparing lunch. Mrs. Jensen would visit later with fresh pastries. Life had settled into a new rhythm, one filled with laughter and sleepless nights and the particular chaos that comes with new parenthood. But through it all, Damien and Lila held on to each other. Two strangers brought together by impossible circumstances, two hearts that learned to beat as one, two souls that discovered love doesn't follow rules or logic.